Welcome to the Masterclass Basic Training of Shift. Now, for those that are watching this video later, or your first time you've ever heard this, most of you here have heard of our Shift ministry. Shift is simply an acronym for Sanctifying Historical Illusions, Finding Truth. Okay? And so what that basically means is it's God going into the darkest places of our past experience and flipping it over and showing the purpose of what you walk through and how it's actually all good. Okay? What that does is it releases you from a lot of the lenses in which you're judging your present experience based on those past lenses. And we're going to get into a lot of depth on the mind throughout this time. But the classes that we're going to be doing here, we're going to be touching on multiple levels of the mind, how it operates, the difference between intellect and experiential knowledge, these types of things. And I believe it's going to go deeper than head knowledge. Now, if you've ever kind of looked and studied the statistics of how well you can hear when somebody is teaching, you're going to get about 15% of this today. That's about all the mind can retain. Now, the more your mind is renewed and no longer distracted by the past, the more you absorb in the moment. Okay, so some of you might get 25% of this. Okay, but ultimately, you want to go over it over and over and over again. I'm not saying that what I'm sharing is exclusive. What I'm sharing is very common. All right, if you know anything about basic psychology and how the mind is wired, there isn't an inner healing ministry out there. Well, there isn't an effective inner healing ministry out there that doesn't have the same foundation of dealing with past trauma, embracing your pain, and these types of postures. Okay, so this is across the board. Everybody is copying everybody because there's only one way to do it. All right. Now there's all the different types of methodologies within inner healing. I don't really like the term inner healing. I'm using it today because that's what we're used to. I like the term renewal of the mind because you're really not trying to get healed. You're really unlocking what it has always been according to the Father's perspective of what you went through in your life. Okay? So we're not asking God to turn our ashes into beauty. What we're asking Him to do is to unveil the beauty that we concluded was ashes. All right? And so I truly believe that this is going to bless you. So some of the topics we're going to be looking at here, and again, these are rough drafts on paper, but we're going to go deep into multiple subjects on each lesson. Tonight is on lenses of the mind, and we're going to be talking about different ways in which the mind responds, reacts. We're going to talk about emotion. It's going to be very basic tonight. I'm going to set you up with a basic introduction. Okay, so it doesn't overtake your mind and it's too much information. And we'll be getting into that tonight. Next week, we'll be getting into intellectual knowledge versus experiential knowledge. That will take me a while to unfold, and basically how you live your life based on your experience, not based on what you read in a book, what you studied. You don't even live your life based on what you've claimed of the Scriptures. You live them based on the lens of how you have seen yourself in traumatic experiences of the past. All right? Then we're going to get into quantum perceptions, illusions, and reality. Now that one's going to be a fun one because we get to go deep into that one. And those are going to be one of the ones you might not necessarily comprehend it all. But I'll give you some references of different people you can reach out to on YouTube to get what I call Quantum for Dummies, if you're not familiar with it. The next series after I'm done with this will be the Quantum Quo experience, okay? And I will break down quantum physics as best as I can, because that is a big part of how your mind works. And the more you understand quantum, at least the simplicity of how emotion responds, how cells respond, you know, and how we constantly are in a state of reaction based on past trauma. You know, the more you understand quantum, the easier it's going to be to posture yourself in the midst of contradictions. Make sense? After that, we're going to deal with what are triggers, defender lies, and categories of lies that we're going to get into. Pretty straightforward, simple, just to show different ways that the mind holds on to pain. And I'll give you an example. Let's say there's a memory we're wanting to go to in your life, and it's based in rejection. And when I ask the Father to take you to that memory, and all of a sudden you see 20 years pass before your eyes, not one memory, but a whole bunch of them, what is happening? Well, that's a thematic lie. That's a category there, which means you don't have to go all the way to the base lie. You can find it anywhere in your life. So just look for one of the highlights, focus in on that memory, let the Father bring truth. The end of the matter is it translates a domino effect both directions, and all the other memories on each side are completely renewed. I love it. I love that we don't have to go to every memory in our head. That's just too much work. We'd be here forever. All right? So we're going to be looking at different categories of lies. After that, we're going to look at the 5 steps to restore memories. This is going to be the heart of it in the posture of doing this process. And don't get me wrong, most of us here have crossed over out of works and into grace. So don't allow this to feel threatening to you about doing something. I think we get caught in that and go, wait a minute, man, God's already done it. It's already done. You know, it's finished, and it is. But it doesn't mean that my belief system historically has grasped the reality that is finished. And so we partner with the Spirit. We don't work for God. God doesn't work for us. We partner. It's a partnership. And sometimes the outward doing of things can feel like performance, but sometimes it's just partnership. Amen? So we are going to be doing things, but by the Spirit, by grace, in peace. Amen? After that, we're going to go into, and this is going to be one of my favorite subjects, is spiritual warfare, Satan and demons. I'm going to break it all down. The reason why I'm bringing this into this series is because a lot of the stereotype of inner healing or freedom has been so focused on Satan, demons, devils, that the demonic has become really the focus rather than restoration, you know. And I want to break it down. I will be, and again, nobody has to agree with me. If you're not there, it's okay. Everybody needs a devil till they don't need one. Okay? But I'm going to be breaking down the heresy of demonology that originated in Greek mythology. We're going to get into who Lucifer really was, and who Satan really was, and more or less what Lucifer was and what Satan was, not a who. Unless you're from Dr. Seuss, right? And Horton here's a who, right? And then after we go through that, we're going to go into sin consciousness. This is another important one, because most inner healing ministries revolve around identifying a demon or what sin you've committed that put that bondage in you in the first place. Let me just say from the get-go, 99.9% of the pain in your life is not because of sin. Okay? It's because of things that have happened to you. It's either bad things happening or the absence of good things. All right? And so we have to get beyond this whole self-induced condemnation of me trying to take account for my life when I'm blind. I mean, would you beat a blind person over the head if you handed them a Bible and they couldn't read it? Would you run over to a crippled and kick them out of their wheelchair saying, get up and run, man. What's your problem? Everybody else is. You know, we wouldn't do that. That wouldn't be right. And so it is important that we understand that, you know, the Father doesn't hold anything against us. He's not looking at your do's and don'ts. He's looking at you as complete and perfect based on His perspective of you. Right? Not necessarily our perspective of ourselves, right? And so this is really important. Then we will get into the last two sessions is going to be on shift ministry, the do's and don'ts. I'm going to give you some legalities here that you want to watch out for. You know, why we don't just jump in to heal others to try to heal ourselves. I mean, if you got, we're going to learn how to partner up during this 9 weeks, practice, but find somebody you already know. Don't go out there half-cocked and try to start an inner healing ministry, because most of them that started that way, if you go there and you get more wounded than you get healed. Okay? And so we don't want to try to heal ourselves by healing others, even though there is a place for that in real relationship. We want to make sure that we're, you know, restored enough that when we are ministering this process on people, we're not getting stirred up and triggered and hindering the person we're trying to help get set free. All right? So to the degree you're free is to the degree you will see freedom results in those you minister this to. All right? And so I have about I'd say about 95, 98% success rate on shift. And, you know, and we'll get into that in just a moment. And the last session will be from shift sessions to a shift lifestyle. This is vitally important because we don't want to become so dependent on sessions that we hide behind closed doors to get our whole life fixed when circumstances and situations in the journey are going to shed a greater light and picture of experience than just sitting and trying to work through it outside of life experiences. All right. So we need the sessions to get us going, to teach us how to feel and to discern between feelings and intellectual thoughts that are trying to distract you from feelings. All right. But once you graduate into that and you know how to posture, life itself should be your shift process. I know for me, it started out very mechanical, and then all of a sudden it was like instant. Like now when I get triggered, unless it's my wife triggering me, you'll have certain people you can't just do it on yourself if there's a really close connection with that person. All right? You're angry, you're more upset because that person is close to your heart. So I still need help if my wife triggers me. In fact, she's the one that does the session on me. So I really got to humble myself when I'm triggered at her, because she's the one saying, how does that make you feel? And all I'm hearing is, you're mocking me, aren't you? Right? When you're triggered. Okay? So this is all going to be really good stuff. So that's the overview of what we're going to be looking at, and then some. That's just a quick overview of it. But let me just say this. And here's my disclaimer. I am not a clinical counselor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I will in no way try to be one. Okay? So I am not I have no credentials to heal you or to give you the full unveiling of psychology like from a university or that type of thing. What I do have is life experience. And I have a lot of years of life experience in this specific type of ministry. When I first became a Christian or was born again or woke up, I'm trying to use every possible terminology here for everybody out there, I was immediately thrust into the deliverance ministry. You know, the demon-focused 80s version. It was in the 80s, so if you were there in the 80s, it was a lot more extreme than it is now, and there's still some pockets in places that it's extreme. But I was the poster child for the demonic, okay? And so I went through all of that, and Years later, I'm still trying to get delivered. And every time it would come back, I'd be told, well, it came back because there's a sin in your life, or somebody's cursing you, and now it's 7 times worse. And it took me a while to catch on that Jesus never had that issue when he freed people. You know, and that there's something off here about this. So I slowly began to come out of deliverance, and that's when I was introduced to, and some of you have heard this, of this ministry, Theophostic ministry, of which, as I'm sharing this by video, honor to whom honor is due, Dr. Ed Smith, who's a Baptist preacher and psychiatrist, psychologist, he came up with a process called Theophostic. Now, you're going to find some of my language comes straight from that. I'm not writing down his stuff and teaching his stuff. It's just from habit in the way in which I've ministered. But I have done my best to come up with my own language and my own methodology in this. So my method is different from Theophostic because there is no demonic we deal with and there is no sin consciousness we deal with. I've removed all the filler. When I did Theophostic, it would take about 3 hours per session. And we would see results, and it was great results, but 3 hours, okay? With Shift, we've been able to do the same thing, if not more, in 1 hour. So it goes deeper, quicker, and the fruit is amazing. We have seen tons of fruit. Now, not everybody has experienced the instant fruit. It depends on where you're at on your journey, where you're at on your emotions, you know, where you're at on being honest with yourself, repression, right? Where we're still in control of our own lives, or we think we are, right? And we're holding on to that pain. And sometimes there's a theme that the Father is working in you, in your journey of what appears to be delay or struggle, that's actually working for you an eternal weight of glory that is connected directly to the people you're sent to the company you keep, right? Does that make sense? You follow me thus far? And I will do my best to talk slow. I'm actually talking slow right now. Yes, I know. I've been told I need to talk slow here. So I'm trying. I didn't drink a lot of coffee, so I'm good. But I have about, I started doing Theophostic. I want to say it was 2002, 2003. I went through the training, the basic, the advanced, and I did it full time. I had my own, pretty much my own office, and that's all I did, 40 hours a week. And so I lost count after 12,000 hours. So since then, I don't know, a couple years ago, the Father said, I want you to develop your own, and I want you to bring it forth. So I did. I stopped doing it for years. I got a little burned out on it because I had gotten enough restoration in my own life. I wasn't feeling triggered. And so, you know, you get tired of sitting there day in and day out going, how does this make you feel? How does that make you feel? You know, and especially when you're mystical and you like to be in the glory and you like to have visions and encounters. So you can't share any of that in this process. It actually interrupts people's restoration. And we will get into that as we continue through this series. All right, does that make sense? Okay. So I've seen a lot of success. I've seen a lot of adjustments that I've made in the way in which I go forth with this process. So I truly believe that this is an important process. Again, there's many ways that God can restore your mind. Most of us, it's usually walking around a mountain for 10 years and then we get the hindsight. This will bypass 10 years. Okay? This will redeem 10 years in a couple hours, or at least over a period of a couple of months worth of sessions, depending on how deep the trauma is and the timing in which your mind will give you permission to access the pain. We'll get into that as well, all right? And so I would say that I'm qualified to share what I'm going to share with you over the next 9 weeks, and because of experience, because of the fruit. And how many in here have had a shift session with me? Okay, all right. So you've had shift sessions. Where did they benefit you? All right, okay, all right. And Stella, your wife had one as well. And how's she doing? Is it doing good? All right. Seeing fruit? All right. You know, sometimes you're going to see a lot, sometimes you're going to see a little, and sometimes a session is going to go only that deep because your mind won't allow you to go any deeper. Or situations haven't arisen to cause you to run out of gas intellectually to let go of reason to come into the place where you can now embrace the emotional pain.